there's a lot of people at these cultural gatherings, and you make friends with people. You see different drum groups, and as a singer, as a longtime singer, something that I noticed is that at a lot of events, there's singing that takes place. That's how a lot of people open up different events, whether it's online, at a conference, at a gathering, at something that may not even be indigenous whatsoever. They're singing. And so a lot of times growing up in that community of powwow, I got the chance to sing at a lot of different events that had nothing to do with powwow. And so again, just kind of like drawing back to those cultural teachings, those cultural gifts from the creator, those cultural gifts that you've mastered or that you've thought about, you know, taking a look at. Those are what really opened the doors for me later on in my life. Those are what had a lasting impact. It puts you in a position where you're sitting next to the CEOs, you're sitting next to the executive directors, you're the one that's up before the president or the vice president of the company, or who knows where you might be. You're the one that's opening up for those folks, and you get a chance to really introduce yourself. So again, you're practicing your introduction, you're practicing your skills, and you deliver your art or you perform your song, and everyone is so touched by that that a lot of people will actually congratulate you, or they'll come up to you afterwards. And so these are all secondary opportunities that really, again, spun off of just being grounded in culture, being grounded in who I am as an Indigenous person. Those are some of the things that I kind of learned early on. And a lot of the places that I practiced this was actually at conferences, because again, you're going from one setting to another setting where no one's wearing, regular clothes. They're all wearing business attire. They're all wearing business suits, and they all have these cool name tags, and they all have these really awesome titles. And so going from one setting to the next, I just kind of just shifted over to where now I'm wearing a suit, now I'm wearing a blazer, and I got this cool little, button that says Indigenous Entrepreneur that Change Labs gifted me. But again, you're transitioning from one area to another where you might be a little nervous, you might be a little bit, your introvert side might come out a little bit more than usual. But I always say this is where, that practice comes into play, where you start to, introduce yourself, you start to network a little bit. And I always say if you're in a new place, like a conference that you may not have been at, and maybe it's a completely different field, I always say try to find somebody that you know there. That's a great way to help break the ice for yourself, but also helps like make you relax a little bit. Even if you may not know of anybody, make friends with the organizers, reach out to them, let them know like who you are, and make a friend with a staff member. That's something that I always do from time to time if I'm at a place where maybe it's not business or entrepreneurship related or climate change related. Maybe I'm in healthcare, or maybe I'm at some cultural place that I may not know anybody. And those are some great ways to kind of help establish that grounding. Another thing that I do too that we might not even talk about here today is, when you get on the land and you get to the conference early, maybe put a little bit of tobacco down, or maybe have a smudge, or say a prayer, pray that you're going to be successful, and that you're going to meet people, or that you're going to get the thing that you're looking for. And so I always say when you go to a conference, make sure you arrive a little bit early. That way it helps you. They say you got to get grounded. It helps you ground on the area or the land that you are on. And so another way that I do that is I always try to arrive one day early to a conference, and I do that. I'll go out and I'll, have a prayer, or, you form that connection so that you're just a little bit more spiritually grounded in those spaces, and that when you're able to attend the conference, your anxiety isn't as high as it normally is, or the stress of meeting people. Because I know how it is when you go to a conference, sometimes you may not want to get out of your shell. I've been that native in the corner, and you don't want to talk to anybody. Your social battery is a little bit low, and so the last thing you want to do is go shake hands with people. But I promise that that time will pass, and you're only there for a little bit of time, so you might as well make the best of it. And so again, when you are attending these conferences, make sure that you're taking time for yourself so that you do have those down times where you can recharge. And so conferences and gatherings like summits and seminars that are in person, those are a great way to find community, find networks. Those are actually my favorite is conferences because I love to talk to people. I haven't always loved to talk to people. Believe me, when I was younger, I was actually a really big introvert, but because I had to like basically teach myself not to be that, those are where it's at. Especially if you're looking for clients, people that are looking for services, if you're looking for contract work, or if you're looking for employment, or just friendship. Again, going back to being human, having relations with folks. Not always wanting something in return. Conferences are a great place to do that, as well as powwows or cultural ceremonies or cultural events. I think those are a really awesome place to find that. The next place that you could also find a lot of networks and to seek that is online platforms like business directories or social media. If anybody has Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok, you're going to start to follow people that are similar to the things that you like, that are similar to the things that you wear, that are similar to the things that you want out of life. You'll start to follow these folks and you'll reach out or you'll like their statuses or you'll react to their stories online and you'll start to form that relationship and or friendship. And I always say to don't ever ask for something, right away. Just support these individuals, support them. I'm pretty sure the same thing goes at conferences where people are so used to pitching. I actually say don't pitch at a conference. Just have a conversation with somebody, so that they know that you're to like sell something. You want to make sure that you establish that relationship, that you're not just trying to close the deal all the time. I'm pretty sure we all know people like that where it turns into some kind of transaction. You want to make sure that you're establishing that we are human beings and that you want to form a good, healthy relationship with that person. So again, going back to online platforms and social media, I get a big kick out of this, but I always say, as an entrepreneur that's looking for business, or as an entrepreneur that's just looking for network or to grow your different communication online, I always say keep it sacred. But again, you don't have to listen to me, but you don't want to be complaining a lot on Instagram or Facebook, or you don't want to showcase certain things just because people do look at your Instagram or your social media when they're trying to hire you. So I always say keep it sacred, keep it safe, unless you have it on private and you're very familiar with how to do that. But I always say that, keep your social media safe because a lot of people will look at that because they want to get an impression of who you are. Again, you don't have to censor it, but just being mindful of, who's looking at your stuff, because that is a common practice where people do look at your social media if they're trying to, hire you. They want to know what kind of a person you are and all these other things. So again, but also social media, the utility of social media is a great way to form connections with people, to build a community. Like whoever thought that you all you have to do is do a how to do something video on TikTok and put a really good image in front of it, and that thing will go viral. You'll get 10,000 likes and you'll open up a huge community just off of a video. And the same thing goes with a picture, posting quality pictures or whatever it may be on social media. And all of a sudden you have this like huge, massive following after some time of building that. And then, folks are like, how do I connect with this Jacob character? How can I connect with this Raquel character or Change Labs or whatever it may be? That's all through visibility and making sure that you're visible on these platforms. And so if you're an entrepreneur or somebody that's looking to build their networks, I would say, number one, start taking quality photos, create content online and put it out there and see who bites on that, see who wants to get more involved in some of the things that you're doing or just to support you. This was something that I kind of started doing recently. I'll share a little story as I've been getting involved with more drum making. I'm a singer, again, as I mentioned before, but I'm also a very gifted hand drum creator. And so I posted a couple of videos last month of me doing some art, and that's what I call that. It's my art, and I use it for singing. And I've sold 20 drums in like a month. So again, or traded for. Again, I don't think everything has to be monetized, but you'll be amazed at what people are willing to trade for things and services. And so I did a lot of trading over the last month, and it was really awesome to kind of see that even though we're living in 2025, the Native American trade game is still here, and people do trade blankets for drums or whatever it may be. So it's very exciting to see that we're still practicing that form of trade in business in the US at this time of date. So again, this is just where to connect. These are great ways, great places for practicing and all that jazz. Again, nobody got good overnight. I think it does take a little bit of time, but with the right skills and the right support, you can definitely do a lot. How to connect? Well, this is something that I talk a lot about. Is number one, as I mentioned and shared story early on, prepare. Prepare for the area that you're going into, or the conference, or the community event, whatever it may be. Read up on that. If I'm going to Navajo Nation, I want to do a little bit of prep work. Who are the folks that I'm gonna meet? Who are the folks that I'm hoping that are going to be there? How does that look like? And that's stuff that happens before you even get into the situation. So say you're going to a party, you're going to a party and you want to meet some folks there. Well, who's inviting you? Who's on the list that are going to be there? Who are some of the people that you want to meet? So again, doing that preparation work goes a long ways. I also say that being approachable is also something that's really big. Have you ever just seen like like a mean auntie or a mean uncle, and you're trying to have a conversation with them and you just can't because they have this like stoic look where they look pissed off all the time? Well, I kind of grew up around folks like that, and I promised I didn't really want to be like that. And so, again, I like to smile, especially when I'm at these social events, just because it kind of helps show people that you're friendly, that you're approachable, that you're willing to be that person, that you're willing to connect, that you're not going to be mean, that you're going to be kind. I always say be kind, don't be nice, just because nice is a little bit two-faced. Be kind because kindness helps open doors for people after you meet them. So again, be kind, be approachable, have a look on your face that means that you can come up and have a conversation with you. So again, another way to do this, once you say hello and you have that little icebreaker of like, hey, I like your beadwork, or hey, I like your hat, or hey, I like your feathers, or hey, I like your quill work, or your flat t-shirt, or your leather vest, or whatever it may be, your turquoise ring, or maybe I like your black jacket, or whatever it may be, your black hat. Make sure that you have a compliment when you're talking to somebody, and don't be afraid to introduce yourself in your language. I always say that it's always a good thing to introduce yourself, or it depends on where you are. Like if you're in a setting like I that we are in today, where we're online. Curator has gifted us with Facebook and Zoom and Wi-Fi, where we can kind of go online and do this whole thing. It's pretty cool that we're able to communicate this way, but I always say, introduce yourself in your traditional language whenever you can, especially if you're at a conference or if you're at a gathering of some kind. It's always good to establish, who you are, what tribe you're coming from, and how you're greeting folks. And then again, just go into English right after that. Or maybe if you're having a conversation with somebody one-on-one and you already know, oh, I'm from Tsuut'ina Nation, my name's Jacob. I'm with the, Utah Division of Indian Affairs, what's your name? And then again, practice that active listening of like, listen to the person, don't be somewhere else. I know that with everything that's going on in the world, it's really easy to get distracted, especially with your phones or a podcast or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, whatever it may be. It's so important to practice that active listening, because you're going to draw on some of the things that they tell you about. Maybe they're from, the Navajo Nation. Oh, what part of Navajo? Or maybe they're from Hopi. What part of Hopi? Or maybe they're from San Juan Southern Paiute, or maybe they're from, Ute Mountain Ute. Oh, cool. I've been to that community before. I've stayed at the casino. I've stayed at the hotel. It was awesome. I love the motif. I really love the land. Compliment. When you're commenting and asking questions because you've been listening, comment on some of the things that they're telling you about so that you're engaged in the conversation, that you're not just listening to them and it's like you're talking to a wall. Because that's the difference between building relationships, trust, and friendship. Because, oh my gosh, this person's actually listening to me versus like someone who doesn't want to be there, and they're just trying to get out of the room as fast as they can. So again, make sure you practice active listening. Make sure that you comment after and that you're asking questions about what they just told you. I always say don't ask for anything up front. That's something that I'm like really big on is don't ask for anything. I know that sometimes you have limited time together. I totally get that, but in this situation, if you're at a conference or whatever it may be, don't ask for anything. Just be yourself, be human beings. Unless you have something to offer, that's when I would say, okay, well, let's do that. I'm gonna teeter toddle a little bit on this just be yourself thing. Um, I really think that you should be authentically you. I think that you have a lot to offer the world. Everybody has gifts. Creator has blessed us all with gifts. And so I always say just be yourself. But in this situation where maybe you're new to networking, maybe you're still learning how to read a room, or maybe you're still learning how to connect with people, sometimes it's good to observe someone else and watch how they do it. That's something that I'm really big into as watching how other people do it. I have a friend who works with, well, I can't say where they work or who they work for, but they really taught me a lot about connecting with folks and being able to read the room and understanding who are the folks that you want to talk to. And she was also the one who taught me how to say folks instead of guys, or you individuals or you people. She's the one who kind of taught me how to use the word folks. So again, watching them and learning how they connect with people, how they support community, and how they network. That was something that was really big and really helped me in my journey on connecting. And so again, watching them, learning how they connect, and practicing that at different community events, different gatherings or conferences. That's something that really helped me out. Because again, we're not always blessed with being social butterflies. Sometimes we have to learn and observe other folks on how to be that person. And so if you're in a space where you want to connect with somebody, again, trying to find people that that's always really helpful because it helps establish a little bit of grounding and a sense of community. A sense of belonging is really big, especially when you're at a conference and you may not know a lot of people. Try to find one person that might be there. Or before you even go to the conference, write on Facebook, hey, I'm attending the Reservation Economic Summit. Who's there? And then see if people respond. That's something that's really important, is I like to do a little bit of prep work before I actually even go to the conference. That way, I'm setting up meetings throughout the conference on my free time, and it's also giving me a chance to, build that confidence of having a conversation with somebody at that space. Again, that's just a little bit of prep work. You can also, something that I love to do too, and I learned this from my same friend, is ask them to introduce you to somebody. Maybe there's somebody from Walmart, or maybe there's somebody from Target or Costco in the room, and you're trying to connect with them, and maybe somebody knows them. So go up to that person and be like, hey, can you, your friend, or, introduce yourself to this person. Be like, hey, I see you're talking to so and so. Can you introduce me to this person? And 90% of the time, 95% of the time, they have always been like, yeah, sure, this is Jacob Crane from so and so. He's working with these people, these folks. He's doing, this is the work that he does, and he wanted to meet you. And then you just introduce yourself and you say, I'm a big fan of the work that you're doing. Thank you for working with our communities, and thank you for being here. How are you liking the conference so far? So these are some of the things that you can kind of do to kind of help you get over the hump of, being shy or whatever. And I always say, don't be shy. Like, don't be that person in the corner. I've been there before, and if you are going to be that person in the corner, that's totally fine. Sometimes you need an opportunity to recharge your social battery because you've been out all day amongst people, and so you've been, exerting yourself, and you've been spending a lot of time communicating, and so you might need that little bit of downtime. So go to the room or go be by yourself outside and recharge, or go get something to eat, or maybe grab a coffee. So those are just some ways to that I use to connect with some folks. And again, you're not always selling, just try to be humans and have conversations with each other. So we're going to go into a quick little exercise on, where are places that you connect? Where are some places that you connect? And I want to definitely ask the audience, where are places that you connect, and what are some examples on how you connect with folks? So anybody can come off, mute. We can kind of do this popcorn style. But yeah, my time is yours. And then we'll do this for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll go into more of the presentation. But I definitely want to give the audience a chance to engage with me, and we can kind of go back and forth. So I don't know, Raquel or Sophia, or if any of the audience have any questions, or maybe they might want to talk a little bit about where are some of the places that they connect, what are some good conferences that you may have been to, or some strategies on how you like to network.
So I've actually been to my first conference this year in March at Res Economic Summit, and it was a whole totally different environment for me. And so I kind of just took the lead on my colleagues. They're very much open to talking to people and just making new connections. So I just took their lead. Definitely met some new people during our lunch sessions. And I think something that I had to keep telling myself is like Jacob said, is just like just be yourself, because then that's what people gravitate to. So liking all of these suggestions that Jacob's making, and I actually met Jacob there for the first time. So it's good to meet people in person as well and get to know a little bit about them. But I'm gonna popcorn it on over to, let's see who's on the list. Delphina.
Hello, good afternoon. How I connect, I guess I agree with Jacob. It just depends on what type of conference you're attending and the type of people. So I'm really cognizant about, I kind of review, I guess, my age group, because there's a certain way I feel like you need to talk to your elders versus somebody my age and younger. So that's where I go, kind of do that. And of course, being in Navajo, you had to do your whole introduction of your clan. And I wish sometimes we can shortcut it, but it's just out of respect too. So I just read people and figure out how to just do that introduction really quickly, and then try to, like you said, tips on finding what we're most common in, or what things that we want to have solutions for our communities, and go from there. So that's kind of what I kind of do. And I guess I can popcorn it to, let me see what participants. I'm gonna pick on Erin. Is Erin available?
Me?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. I try to get out in the community and go to like chapter houses, chapter meetings, and things like that. And then I'm trying to make more of an effort to go to ceremonies and things like that, to be able to meet and to be able to talk to my elders, and know how to talk to them and learn my language and things like that. So that's kind of the stuff that I'm doing. It's really overwhelming for me to be in like a conference, but I think I'm learning when I go to these smaller events.
Great, great. Yeah, conferences, especially like res, they could be so overwhelming. There are so many professionals, there are so many people, so it can definitely be a little overwhelming at times. And you're like put into the situation where you have to be active and social and engaging and all that jazz. And so sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming. So I definitely understand that. And great suggestions, folks. Thank you so much for sharing. We're gonna go continue on the journey. And the cool thing about Wi-Fi is sometimes it goes out and you don't even know it goes out. And the only way I knew was because I could hear the conversation in the next room, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my Wi-Fi went out. So again, I just switched to my hotspot, so that's always awesome. It's a good opportunity to to practice, your communication skills on how to navigate Wi-Fi issues. So again, let's keep moving on. So again, culturally grounded strategies. This is something that I kind of learned throughout my journey on working in Indian country is community minded, making sure that you're there to offer something. So what can you do for the community? That's a big one. A lot of times people are like, what can you get out of something? What are you getting out of this so that it makes you want to do it? Where if you flip it and you turn it more into like, what is the service that I can provide, or what can I do for this community? I think that's going to be a little bit more successful as far as understanding like how we build and how we network, how we build friendships and relationships in Indian country. So again, what can you do for the community? That's something that I like to always walk into any situation. Again, talking about rooted in culture. I know that we just talked about that for a little bit about some of the places that you can definitely go to find community and to practice those relationship skills. And they're not at some like distant, faraway land or some distant conference where you're like, oh my goodness, I can't even afford to get to the conference. Well, the song and dance is just right down the street. So again, when you go to these places that are rooted in culture, practice that reciprocal relationship building. Making sure that you're supporting each other and that's based in reciprocity. So something that I really like to do when I'm doing my cultural fire events, dance troupe, something that I like to do is I'll call my dancers and I'll give them a call and I'll be like, hey, I have a performance. It's in Salt Lake City, and this is how much we're going to offer you, but we're also going to give you a small gift as well, so that it's not just a transactional thing. And they're always really happy, and they let me know about that. But in return, all my dancers are always on time. They show up on time. They do their best, and they hold their relationship with me in such high regard. And so again, just making sure that you're practicing those opportunities and sharing the love a little bit, and that reciprocity of like, sharing things. You get something, well, you give something back, and that it's reciprocal, that it goes both ways, so that it's not just, you're the one that's doing everything, that you're practicing, or that you're promoting reciprocal relationship building or reciprocity. Sometimes people, they don't even know what that means. What does that mean? So that something goes, it's a give and take situation where, you create this ecosystem of things that are shared, that abundance mindset. And that's really where we kind of start to talk a little bit about Indigenous frameworks and what does Indigenous networking look like. And, it looks like an ecosystem where people are thriving, where our people are connecting, and they're doing business with each other, but they're also thriving and they're supporting each other, and they're practicing that reciprocity, and that it's coming back to them, that reciprocal relationship that's being formed. So again, those are some of the foundations of networking for me is, how can we do that? And again, approaching things in that holistic or traditional approach of like well-being first. And again, I said that a little while ago that, sometimes being at a conference or at a cultural event might be exhausting to some people. If I go to a powwow and it's like 100 degrees outside, I'm definitely not there physically. I'm there spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, but physically I'm struggling. And so again, if you go into a sweat, the same thing. Maybe you're there mentally, or no, maybe you're there spiritually, emotionally, and physically, but you're struggling with your mental state is struggling a little bit because you're going there for a recharge. Or if you go to a song and dance or yebiche or a rodeo, whatever it may be, it's pretty rare that all four of those things are going to show up at the same time. Usually something will not be there, and you're going there for that. And so again, my recharge is going to powwow, is going to sweat lodge. So my spirituality may not be there, but I'm going there to get that so that I can leave the weekend and I can be recharged on that, because I got the mentality down, I got the emotional part down, I got the physical part down, but it's that spirituality that's kind of a little drained from working in a colonial setting, working for the state of Utah. Maybe I'm getting a little drained on that, and that's why I'm going there so that I can get a recharge, right? So that I can go into the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, with all those four things recharged, and then again you start to recognize what's being drained a little bit, and that you're practicing that well-being and that taking care of yourself. And so these are just some culturally grounded strategies that I like to use whenever I'm like, kind of going through certain things, especially with networking. It's a very, I don't want to say it's a very demanding thing, because I don't really think going and hanging out with people and having conversation with them is so demanding. But again, I've trained myself to not be that. But every now and again, I'll have a conversation with my wife and I'll be like, hey, I'm so, you know, physically drained from this conference that I need a little bit of downtime. And I'll just go hang out by myself or whatever it may be to recuperate that. Sometimes people will hang out with animals. That's a great way too to help recharge those batteries. So again, just different strategies and tactics on how to do that and how to care for yourself after that. And so this kind of brings us into this whole like know before you go. How are you showing up? How are you presenting your image during the conference or gathering, whatever it may be, and how are you leaving? And so these are just some strategies. I just plugged some photos in here just because I was having fun, and I didn't want this to be too serious to the point where it's not fun. And I love to have fun in my work. I'm always smiling. I like to, have a little bit of fun, but I get a big kick out of this Graham Greene picture where it's like you're tradish, but you're also running a business. Well, this kind of goes into the know before you go. So the researching, know which land you're on, whose land you're on before you're arriving, and know who your audience is. So for example, if you're going to a conference like RES or IGA or NCA, whatever it may be, know who's going to be there. Is it going to be a lot of natives? Is it going to be a lot of non-natives? What are the hat that you have to put on? How are you going to hold yourself, throughout that process? And plan your days. Plan your days. Whose traditional homelands are you on? Again, who's your audience? This stuff really helps with having conversations with the organizers of the conference, but also the people that are attending the conference, because you might comment, "Oh, I love this city," or "I love this land," or Have you seen the nightlife here? Have you seen the sunset here? Have you been out on the land? This tribe is right down the road from this conference. They have a great golf course or a great gas station, whatever it might be. You're always trying to complement the homelands that you may be visiting or that you're on, and that all helps with having a nice conversation with the people that are there. These are things that help guide those conversations. How are you showing up? Well, if you know me, or if you know some of the work that I do, I always like to wear a little bit of regalia. So whether it's I put Scar here not because he's a hater, but because he's wearing a Pendleton jacket, or I don't know what I think that's Pendleton. I'm pretty sure it is. I know it's not 7 Gen, but he's got turquoise on. He's got the beaded bling at the bottom. Oh, that's not beaded. That's turquoise as well. But I like to always show up to my events, with a little bit of native fashion, a little bit of native flair, because it helps me be grounded in the work that I do. So I always say, wear a little piece of regalia. Shake hands with everybody when you're, speaking to them. If needed, again, introduce yourself in your language. And don't forget to read the room. Like, who are the folks that you're trying to connect with? Or maybe you go into a meeting space and you don't know anybody there, but you're looking to sit down at a table. That's fine. Read what table that you want to sit down at, and then go sit down there and talk to somebody. Introduce yourself to them. Be like, hey, how are you enjoying the conference? Or maybe it's an icebreaker. I love your turquoise, necklace or turquoise belt, or I love your jacket or your earrings, whatever it may be. And I know that, native guys, native girls, two-spirit folks, everybody these days are wearing something, some form of regalia when they show up in these spaces. And just make sure you compliment that, because it helps with an icebreaker, but also gives you something to talk to the person about. Because normally they will tell you, "Oh, I picked it up at a powwow," or "I picked it up at a conference," or "This is the vendor. They're here. They're the person that I got it from." "Oh, cool. How much was it?" And you start having this deep conversation that is like, human to human. You're going back into that whole conversation of just greeting each other and being human beings in those spaces. So again, how are you presenting yourself or your image? And again, I don't really believe in this too much, but I want to make sure that I touch on this just because it is really important to be respectful and to practice listening instead of talking all the time. I said this earlier, but compliment the tribe. If you're talking to a tribal leader and you're in their community and you're sitting at their table, or if you're in their space and you want to talk to them, make sure that you're complimenting them on their land, on their businesses, compliment the, the beautiful meeting space that they might be in, or perhaps you used to go there or drive by when you were younger and things have really changed in a good way. Make tribal leaders like to hear that. They like to see the change. They like to hear the change. They like to hear those compliments because it helps. This guy's been around. He's been to our community before. You're forming that trust. You're building those bridges to like, hey, I'm not just a one and done person. I've been here before, and I want to come back. So that's really good, and it helps you build that confidence in those spaces because again, it's going to take a little bit of time for you to really build that confidence. And also be kind to yourself because I know that when you're in spaces like this, you can be really shy, or maybe you're an introvert, or maybe you're tired, or you haven't eaten anything, so you're kind of crabby, or you haven't had a coffee yet, or whatever it is. Make sure that you're being kind to yourself and your mind. And if you need to take a little break to go exercise that self-care, go do that. Go do that before you go into those spaces because once you're in those spaces, you kind of turn it on. You turn on that networking person. You put on that networking hat where you have to go and be that person. And we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But again, I always say, a little tip is stand tall, shoulders back. Sometimes I start to, fatigue a little bit, but there was somebody that I met once, Paulette Jordan, and I met her in DC at a march that was happening several years ago. And that person, like Paulette, was so like just polished, how she was standing, what she was wearing, everything. And it just really echoed in that I was talking to a strong Indigenous leader who was doing some really amazing things. And so, again, just understanding that these little things that don't take a lot of effort, those are some things that we need to polish. And I don't think everybody is always perfect all the time, but if there are some things that you can take from this little conversation that we're having here online is, stand up straight, put your shoulders back. And I'm always trying to do that because that's where I fall short as I get a little too comfortable and I start to like, whatever. But yeah, don't forget to do that. And sometimes with networking, I like to say that it's kind of like acting because you get to put yourself in this position and you are the person. Whether you're an entrepreneur, an engineer, doctor, or maybe you're a young professional that's trying to get into the networking scene, maybe have that conversation with yourself before you even enter the room. Today, I'm a cultural liaison, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to represent a cultural liaison. And so you're acting and you're being the part. Sometimes people say fake it till you make it. I just say, well, just act, just act, be that native actor and go ahead and go into that space so that you can form and build those relationships. Switching gears a little bit on how you're leaving. I say it's never goodbye. It's always just we'll see you later. Where I come from in Tsuut'ina Nation, there's actually no word for goodbye. It's just we'll see you later or we'll see you when we see you. And so if you're really vibing with people at the conference, or I always say that you run into the conference and you spend 3 or 4 days there or 2 days there, you make friends. You make friends with your conference buddies, or maybe it's at a celebration or a cultural gathering or an event of some kind. And these people that you've met there are so awesome, and you've just really had a good time, or maybe they've introduced you to a bunch of people that you may not have known beforehand. Something that I like to do is I'll actually travel with sweetgrass. I'll travel with sweetgrass and I'll give somebody a braid of sweetgrass as a way of saying thank you, as a way of saying, see us, Gus, thank you so much for hanging with me and for introducing me to all these amazing people. I just want to acknowledge that and also give you a small gift. So that's practicing the giveaway. That's something that's really served me and has really grounded me as an Indigenous person that operates in Indian country, that works for Indian country, that holds relationships and trust in Indian country. The giveaway is something that a lot of people can adopt and that they can utilize. Because again, when somebody's talking to you, hey, I had such a great time, and they give you a hug, that's great. That's great. But also, if you give somebody a braid of sweetgrass or maybe a small token of appreciation, that goes a lot further as well. And so, again, just building that trust, building those friendships, building those relationships with some of the people that you might meet at these conferences is huge, or at these celebrations, or whatever it may be. Those are some really big, important things that you can do to help build that. And so that's the bridge builder that I like to always do. And so these are just little tips. It also kind of goes back to like how you were raised. If you were raised traditional, or maybe you're raised in more of an urban setting, it's never too late to adopt the giveaway, or to adopt different practices that are indigenous to maybe your lands, or maybe you borrow it from somebody else. There's a lot of diversity in Indian country, 574 federally recognized tribes, unless that's changed over like the last little bit. And maybe there's 575, but from the last time I checked, it was 574. But there's a lot of diversity in Indian country. And so I always say, make sure that you're, you know, adopting best practices amongst your community for your audience. And sometimes those best practices, actually most of the time, those best practices come from your community, or maybe they might come from another community. You're just going to borrow it for a little bit, and you're going to observe how do you utilize it. And it's totally okay to borrow different things, as long as you're saying that you're going to borrow that. Totally fine with that. The jingle dress, the sweat lodge, the Sundance, the powwow, the rodeo, how we care for our animals. A lot of these things were borrowed from different tribes, and that's totally fine. Okay, let's see here. So let's take a quick pause. Let's do maybe 2 or 3 minutes on a sharing circle. But what are some other examples that come to mind when discussing culturally grounded strategies? Maybe you might have something that you wanted to say and wanted to add in when we were talking about this, but what are some ways that you do that? And just popcorn style, just open it up to anybody. Don't be shy, folks. Oh, everyone's shy.
Maybe we didn't hear the question. Could you repeat it one more time? I can
Yeah,
share.
yeah, I'll repeat the question. So, what are some culturally grounded strategies that you might think of, or it doesn't even have to be related to that. It could just be an icebreaker. What are some things that you do if you meet somebody that's like really awesome, you've had such a great time at a conference or at a cultural gathering, you're like, I just want to, just gift you something, or maybe it has nothing to do with that. Maybe it's just you've had a great conversation with them.
Yeah. So for me, I think one instance I can think of that happened recently is an event that we had here at the Tuba City Egypt Hub. We hosted CEO of Cheekbone Beauty, which is a makeup and beauty brand, skincare brand, indigenously owned, indigenous woman owned, which is really, really great. Jen Harper graced us here with a masterclass. She was also able to include other uh, other features of her visit here too, where she included a discount code called Change Labs, I think 20 for her products online, and she said that's available to her community for the rest of the year. She also was engaged in our whole event for that day, even though her masterclass was at the very tail end of the day, and she was very intentional of making sure that she was immersing herself in all the other activities that we had throughout that day. And then to reciprocate that intention and that warmness that she gave to our community is we gave her a goodie bag of our stuff that you see right here behind me, because she is an Indigenous entrepreneur and we value her work and what she's all her missions and her values, her personal values are heavily reflected through her work that she does through her company. And so she also asked very intentional questions, are what are the protocols of interacting with your community, including the youth and the elderly in our communities, because I think there are different protocols throughout different communities. However, in Navajo, we let her know that as long as you greet people coming up, they're going to be a little shy at first because that's just how our community is here. But once they see that you're friendly and that you're being intentional and being approachable, essentially, what our community is going to embrace you and welcome you. very, very warmly. And so observing that through the whole day and observing how she was just another one of us in the community hanging out and enjoying the day's festivities, I think that was a huge part of a relationship building, especially with Jen herself, as well as her company to Change Labs. And then
Yes.
I'll popcorn over. Are we popcorning?
Yeah, go ahead. Well, maybe we'll take one more and then we'll keep going.
Yeah, I'll send it over to Shoni De La Rosa. Thank you for being here, Shoni. And sorry for putting you on the spot.
Hi, I'm Shoni De La Rosa. Let me start my video here. See me all right? There we go. I'm a filmmaker. I'm also a local politician for the Kenta Township. I go to a lot of events, not just like I've been to the economic development conferences, res conferences, loads and loads of film festivals, screenings I've done, all that. And what I find best is that I just be myself. Sometimes I got to watch being myself, my true self, you know what I mean? Because I tend to, I don't know, use creative words, I guess you could say it nicely. So I try to really watch how the words that I say. And it is true what Raquel says. A lot of our people are shy, and I know that when I go to not film festivals, film screenings, like my new movie, The Arrangement, a lot of people, you can tell that they're really, really shy to approach you, and you can tell they really want to approach you and talk to you. Me, I just go right up to them and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Shake their hand, talk to them. And if things go really, really good with people that I meet, I talk to them, from my heart, genuine. I'm not fake. At least I hope people don't think I'm fake when I'm talking to them. But and if it goes off really good, I'll give them a sticker or a business card. I don't hand out business cards like Halloween candy. I give them to people that I think that I know that will stay in touch. Not tell them, let's hook up on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram or whatever. And I always carry merch like t-shirts, stickers, all kinds of things, posters, and I give that to them. And even those I'm pretty frugal with, but if something goes off really, really good, I'll do that. And even so, I like, let me buy you let's go eat lunch, let's go do this, and you kind of form that relationship more that way. It's more personal. And over the many years that I've been doing this, I was extremely shy. I still am. And but my wife has always pushed me, to get out of my shell and just approach people. You got to remember, they're people just like you and me. They're no different than any of us. And that's usually what I do, and just be genuine, kind, smile. And like I posted earlier, you always got to be prepared to be approached as well. Because a lot of people want to approach you. They may want to know about your services or what you do or what your product is or what you can offer or whatever. Always have that ready to go. It's good to practice because they said this in numerous Change Lab meetings that we've had over this period of time I've been with Change Labs. Is like always practice your pitch, practice what you do, and be able to have an answer. And if you don't know, figure it out, learn, and but that's how I do it. And it's really, really hard to be honest, to have that confidence, but you got to work on it. It doesn't just happen. It doesn't just happen. And you just got to get yourself out there and have that bravery, I guess you could say, to just go up to somebody and talk to them, and just go up there, shake their hand. A good handshake is always good, not that dead fish handshake. You don't do that. Do a good handshake, not too hard, good firm handshake. Goes a long way. Goes a long way. Look them in the eye, smile at them, be genuine, be real, be yourself, be respectable. The utmost importance is be respectable. And usually I was always told by my elders as well as my parents is that treat people the way you want to be treated, and that will go a long way. Vast majority of the time, it's reciprocated right back to you. They'll treat you the way you want to be treated, and that's usually how it starts. So, but I didn't know Raquel was going to put me on the spot here. So, but
Oh, it's good.
you
That
know,
was great. No, thank you so much. It's really good to hear that. And again, handshakes, looking the person in the eye, smiling, how are you greeting them? Make sure that you're, I don't know. I do a lot of different things, especially if I'm approaching elders. I like to make sure that I have a soft handshake with elders. Sometimes I'll even put my both hands,
Yeah.
over the hand to make sure that you understand that, and then even going to their, if they're sitting down, don't have them get up. Just get on your knee and say hello and let them know
Yeah.
where you're from, and smile at them and thank you for being here, because it does take a little bit of a journey for an elder to go from one place, their home, to another place, and recognize that it took a little bit of time for them. So thank you for that. I really love
Yeah.
those two comments, and the conversation. This is rich. This is so rich. This is such a powerful conversation that we're having today, and I definitely want to shift gears a little bit just so we can get through the full presentation. It's so funny because I thought I wouldn't have enough time, and now I'm like running out of time. So again, shifting gears a little bit, but overcoming challenges. So because of the pandemic, I've noticed that a lot of our communications have changed. The way we connect with folks have changed, and sometimes people may work from home and they have limited access to networks or maybe cultural teachings. And I recognize that not everybody has, access to financial resources to attend a conference or a gathering, or whatever that may be. And again, I have a little bit of tips that I do. But if you're one of those folks that works from home, I like to join cohorts or webinars, or I'll see something that's online that I might want to attend. I'll just go ahead and register for it, because you never know who's going to be in the audience. You never know who's going to be there. And like Shoni or Raquel, kind of just came off mute and they just started to talk about some of the things. And oh, I really liked what they said, or I really liked what Raquel said. Let's connect afterwards. Or maybe you might do something like this, and you might say, hey, my name's Jacob, and if anybody wants to connect afterwards, here's my email, and we can, I guess what I'm trying to say is that connection can happen anywhere and at any time. And like Shoni had said, always be ready, because you never know when you're going to meet that person, or if you're sitting beside the person that you want to meet. Maybe you didn't realize that that's the investor, or maybe that's the angel investor, or the CEO of Walmart, and you didn't realize that he's sitting right beside you, because those folks, they don't like to be noticed. They just like to attend, and they just like to observe and meet people. And so again, be respectable, be on your best, but also be yourself. Be genuinely you, so that you can have those genuine conversations. Something that I like to do too is, if you can't like get to the conference, maybe it's too expensive or whatever it may be, see if your work will pay for it. That's a great way to really drive engagement and to promote the business or the company that you work for. Maybe it's a nonprofit. Let them know, hey, I want to attend Res, or hey, I want to attend this on the land gathering that's happening, and Indian Collective is the one that are, hosting it, but I really want to go, and see if they'll do that. Or maybe it's a cohort or a training, and they're offering 10 free positions, and three of them are paid for, the attendance is paid. It's waived because you're in the cohort and you're taking the training. I know Change Labs does a lot of training, and see if maybe that's something that they do there. Maybe it's not, I don't know. But have those conversations. Something that I've been doing since the pandemic is I've been doing like a social hour or a social gathering, where it's like almost like a tea time, where friends live across the country, or maybe a friend will live in Canada, or maybe down in Mexico, or maybe they'll be visiting Europe, and I want to meet with them and connect with them. I'll just go ahead and shoot them an email, or I'll send them a DM on Instagram or Facebook, or maybe if I have their number, I'll text them, be like, hey, let's have dinner together, and we'll just jump on Zoom, and we'll just seriously just eat in front of each other and just talk. Or maybe we'll have a tea or a coffee, whatever it is, and I'll just do that from time to time. Or I haven't done this yet, because I'm afraid if I do this, my calendar will open up. But something that I do for specific conferences is I'll post that I'm going to be there. I'll post if anybody wants to meet up, and people will DM me. They'll say, I would love to meet with you. I want to hear what you're doing, or vice versa. I want to hear what they're doing, whatever it is. I'll do that. But, again, if you want to do an online thing, you could do that. Be like, hey, I'm trying to open up my calendar to network a little bit more. And you do that on Facebook or Instagram, and just be like, these are my availabilities. Send me an email. Let's talk. And then you just do that. You just connect. So these are all just different ways to do that, to really connect with folks that are may not live in the same area as you, but these are just ways that I've kind of been doing it over the past, 3, 4 years. Is, my work has paid for me to go to conferences since I was in my early 20s, in my late teens. That's kind of how I got around. So these are really important tools that can really help you out. I know there's people still trying to come into the, okay, sorry, didn't mean to doze off there, but let's skip this. Let's skip this just because I know that we have to give more time for Q&A at the very end. But I wanted to definitely talk a little bit about creating your personal action plan. And again, this is for anybody who's looking to, any young entrepreneur or young professional that's looking to identify new networks. Is, what are the conferences that you want to go to, or what are the gatherings or the celebrations that you want to go to, or maybe you're a student at university and you're looking to, join different clubs, or maybe you're returning to your home community, or maybe you're in community but you want to, grow your network there, or maybe you're trying to grow your online network. I guess it's pretty important to identify those spaces and setting some meaningful goals on how you plan to do that. How are you planning to hold those relationships? Which gatherings do you want to attend? How many conferences do you want to attend this year? And by how much do you want to grow your network? Maybe you want to just meet 2 people a month. Okay, great. Now you have 24 people in your network. Or maybe you want to meet, 10 people per month. Great. Now you have 240 people or whatever it is. Sorry, you can tell that I didn't ace my mathematics class, but you get what I'm trying to say. Is you start to put these meaningful goals behind what you're doing, and maybe you just want to be a nice guy, a nice individual where you just want to meet people so that when you see them again, they recognize you, they know your name, all this jazz, and they remember that time that they spent with you. Again, taking, the next steps with confidence, plan ahead. I've said this a few times, is plan ahead. Understand that trust and relationships do take time to develop. It's not something that just happens right away. I know Shoni had said that. It takes time to develop those relationships and to build that trust. Um, I always say don't come to a gathering empty-handed. So, if you need to, have some sweetgrass on you or whatever it may be, whatever is a gift in your tribal community, maybe that's something that you want to give somebody while you go to a conference. And maybe there's somebody there that has just really connected it with you, and you've really just built that bond over the last 2, 3, 4 days, and you just want to give them something, do that. Do that. Practice that reciprocity with your network as well. That's something that I always say is, you know, practice. Sometimes people don't even know what that looks like or what it means. Well, this is what it means. It means doing this, practicing that. Because in this business of service, or in this business of entrepreneurship, or building, relationships, that's what it looks like. Hey, I want to invite you to come speak at this because you guys had me here. Or hey, I want to introduce you to somebody because you guys did this for me, or whatever. Practice that reciprocal relationship as well. Those are all some really, really important things that I want to definitely leave this conversation with today. And to make sure that there is some time for Q&A and all that jazz. So I want to say thank you so much for Change Labs, for having me today, and for inviting me into this space, and to welcoming me here. And thank you so much, audience, for listening to me talk about building meaningful relationships in Indian country, and what that looks like, and how to what are some of the strategies behind how to do that. So I definitely want to leave some time for Q&A. Maybe there might be something that you didn't get a chance to say during your time together, or our time together, and it's just been like, you've been itching to say it, but and it might not even be a question, it might just be a comment. But popcorn style, this is your time to do that. Also, folks, I don't really believe in like, there's like how do I say this? There's different ways to do this, and there's different ways to come at it. This is just how I do it. I think that if you were to go into a business school, they would teach you a completely different way to do it. This is just how I've been doing over the past few years. And I'm still pretty, well, I wouldn't say I'm new to networking. I would say I'm pretty seasoned in networking. but it there are times where I still get a little bit shy. There are times where I need to sit in the corner because I'm trying to recharge. There are times where I'm not feeling the conference or I'm not feeling the space and I just need to be alone. So again, I'm definitely not a pro at it, but I try and I show up every single time and I just keep getting better and better and better. When I first went to Res, I was so nervous. I didn't want to be there at all. But now this is my fourth Res, and Raquel, Sophia, you see me in action, you know how I do it. So you just have to get comfortable in those spaces.
Hi, Jacob. Hi, my name is Alvina Earnhardt, and I just, speaking of Res specifically, I'm curious to know like how you prepare for that conference in particular, just because it's so huge and there's so many things going on. There's so many people. There's so much to see, and so I have gone twice. The first time, I was a little overstimulated, and I am major introvert in those situations. And so I kind of just hung out with people that I knew. And I feel like I've never really stepped out and taken advantage of the networking opportunities that it really does present. And so I wanted to get your input on how you prepare for it, how you implement your own personal action plan for Res specifically, and then, how you might tailor that back for like a more local event, like in Utah, in your role dealing with Indian affairs, or maybe if there's a different audience that you're dealing with. But that would be helpful. Thank you.
So I get a lot of sleep before going to res. Okay, I get a lot of rest. You have to practice that healing for yourself before and during and after. So first and foremost, take care of your legs. Do a little bit of light walking before the conference itself, from a physical standpoint, but from like a prepping. What are you trying to get out of res? What do you want to offer res? Take a look at that. So if you're like a service provider, or I'll just take it from a really grassroots hypothetical situation. My name's Jacob Crane. I'm this drum maker and I'm trying to be the Indigenous box, but I want to, make sure that I sell as many drums as I can there, So I'm prepping myself. I have my cards ready. I want to know what is the attendee list. And so I'll reach out to the organization. I'll say, hey, what is the attendee list, or who's going to be there? Or maybe I'll look at the sponsors and I'll figure out who those sponsors are, because maybe they'll do some corporate gift giving. Maybe they want to be in that business with me. And so I make sure that I know, who these people are. I'll also see maybe they're putting on a side event. If you know Res, you understand that the nightlife, there is tons of side events that are happening at Res throughout the conference and after the conference, and in the evening time. So I'll find out who do I want to talk to, whether it's Walmart or whatever. I'll try to figure out if I can find these people. So I'll go on the web and I'll be like, who is this person? And I'll go search them. So again, there's like all these preps, and I'm like, maybe he wants to get into the corporate drum giving, drum purchasing from Native American people. I don't know, but those are just ways that I would kind of do it, as far as like prepping for it as a service provider or whatever it is. I want to know who I'm connecting with. I want to know where they're going to be, and I want to know how these folks look like, so that I'm not blindsided if I go into an event, like a side event, and I sit down at this table and there's the person that I'm trying to talk to and I don't know that. That kind of bothers me, and so I'll make sure to do a little bit of research. So you got to do your research beforehand. You have to prep yourself, your body physically, because it's pretty demanding. I walk 15 to 20,000, sometimes 23,000 steps a day at these conferences, because I am just zooming around meeting people. And when I say like, I'll joke around and I'll be like, hey Raquel, you want to roll with me? I don't literally mean roll, but I mean like she'll go with me and we'll walk through the lobby and she'll introduce me to people. I'll introduce her to people. And then once we get to the end of the hallway, I see Sophia walking the opposite direction. See you later, Raquel. I'm gonna go hang out with Sophia. And then you just go back the same direction that you were walking and you meet a whole different slew of people, a completely different audience. And so you're
Mhm.
just like going, and so you just have to make sure that you're physically prepared, emotionally prepared, spiritually prepared. Sometimes I put tobacco in my shoes because I know that sometimes spaces, can be a little difficult. so I make sure that I'm protecting myself spiritually. Or maybe at the end of the day, I used to go to the COPs, Conference of the Parties. It was a non-friendly place to go, and it was a mechanism of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. There are people there that don't like Indigenous people, and they say things, and it would trigger me. And so after the conference, at the end of the day, I'd have a smudge. I'd have to have
Mhm.
a smudge because I have to smudge off that negative energy or that feeling that I felt. And so those are just some ways that I kind of prepare. And then again, when my office, from a Utah Division of Indian Affairs perspective, when my office went to Res last year, we wanted to know how they were doing the branding. We wanted to know who are the people that they're inviting to the conference. They wanted to know who the sponsors were. They wanted to know what are the side events that we could replicate for our Native American Summit that's happening this August, August 1st. You're all invited, by the way, but it's happening August 1st and it's going to be at Utah Valley University. And we want to grow that so that that is a mini res for the state of Utah for the 8 federally recognized tribes. And the only way that we would have been able to do that is we need to go to res. We need to
Mhm.
go take photos. We need to know how the signage is. Who are the sponsors? We need to know how they do their badges. We need to know how the check-in process is. What are they giving out for swag? I already said signage. Who are the people that are presenting? What is the industry that's being represented? Those are things that we really wanted to mimic for the Native American Summit here in Utah. So that was one of the reasons why I went last year, and I'm gonna go again this next coming year because it's grown into this place where that's where I see my friends. It's
Mhm.
also grown into a place where I meet new people and I grow my network. And again, I literally just got into the hand drum making business as a side business. I want to go and, get as many drums out as I can. So I'm definitely going to be, giving people cards and being like, don't buy Pendleton. This is a more meaningful, gift. So, does that help answer any of your questions?
Yeah, that does. And then just out of curiosity, like how do you like find these other outside events? Because I know that they have an agenda and they have the events listed, but then I noticed that a lot of the after hours events where everybody actually socializes and networks, I don't know how people find out about things. Like, for example, I didn't even know there was a Navajo Economic Development Party there. Like, I think it was on Wednesday, and I was really bummed I missed out on that one. But how do you find out about those kind of events?
Like, I don't know if you're on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, but usually people will share their events on there
Okay.
pre-res, months in advance. You can also reach out to the organizers and ask them if they know anything about that. So just a
Mhm.
quick email to their organization. But also when you're at the conference, it's Vegas, so people are like they're like handing out their
Giving out
cards
cards. Is
like
that what that
crazy.
table is in the middle? Like when you're
And then
passing
there's
through?
that table in the
Okay.
middle. There's
Okay.
like, I think there's like two, but you always want to check that every day,
Yeah.
especially in the mornings, the middle of the day, and the end of the day, because you'll see an event flyer that's
Mhm.
happening. And that's like the first thing I do too, is I'm like texting Raquel, because I already know who from my industry is there because I
Mhm.
am shooting up the flare on Facebook. People are messaging me, and I'm getting texts, "Are you going to Res?" And then I say yes. What events are you going to? And then we start to share flyers within our
Mhm.
own texting and all that stuff. And then we open up our group chat, and we're like, "Where are you guys going to tonight on Monday?" And then like 3 flyers will drop in, and then people are like, "Don't go there. That sucks. Go there." No, I'm just kidding. But that happens every single day. So these are just like mechanisms and examples and like strategies on like how to show up and who's going where. I don't want to be by myself. Raquel, can you come with me to this Walmart event or this private dinner? Can you come with me? Because I don't want to. Oh, I'm not on the list. I didn't make it. I will get you in, okay? I will get you in. Every place that I ever went to at Res that I was not allowed to, I just got
Yeah.
in.
Okay, so the key here is just to find you at Res and just walk with you everywhere.
No, seriously, I know that sounds crazy because we're just walking,
Yeah.
but like if you're connected to the right folks, they will introduce you to the people that you want to be introduced to.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. This is very helpful.
No problem. And don't be offended too, like if you get ditched, and I don't want to say if you get ditched, but if you get left, do
Yeah.
not get offended because if you start the night out with a certain group of people, I guarantee you by the end of the night or by the end of the conference, you're not going to be with the same people because
Yeah.
you're supposed to be going all over. That is what is expected of you.
Okay. All right. Good to know.
Yeah, I have to speak to that as well. Like the first res did not know going in blindsided, and that's all we did was we walk with Jacob one way. We get ditched. Just kidding. No, we didn't get ditched. But Jacob has a heavy agenda when it's at res, but it's very intentional. So definitely come out of your shell and just like talk to people. And definitely I definitely start getting in your steps like maybe a month before and wear good shoes. My colleagues kept telling me to wear good shoes and I wore flats. So like on day 2, I was like, I'm done. So, but yeah, thank you so much, Jacob, for giving us more of your knowledge on how to network with indigenously because a lot of the times we forget that we try to match the corporate world or we try to match who we're trying to reach, but we get back down to our roots, it's more meaningful and yeah, so I appreciate that for you coming on here today, Jacob. Raquel, do you want to close this out today?
Yeah, unless Jacob, did you have anything else?
I just dropped my contact information in the group chat here. And so if you want to get connected or maybe I didn't touch on something or if you want to just chat about, preparation for, conferences in general, also too, wear clothes that you can breathe in and that you feel comfortable in that look professional. That's also something that really helps out too. But yeah, my contact information's there. If there's something that I didn't cover, if there's something that I said that you want to elaborate on, and you want to hear a little bit more story behind that, just reach out. I'm super friendly. I'm the easiest person to find on the internet, I promise. But yeah, just want to say thank you so much to Raquel and Sophia and everybody for being online and listening to me rap a little bit about how I network and all the jazz that kind of comes with that. But I promise, just be yourself, be authentically you, and you're gonna go some places. And the nice thing about being Indigenous is we have those places that are intergenerationally with us, like those cultural gatherings that I mentioned. Really wanted to say that because those are places where we get to practice and we also find community and we get grounded in who we are in it. Those are the things that help us later on in life as we go throughout our journeys. So with that being said, I just want to say, see you, Skas, Nanya Sane. Thank you so much. We'll see you later.